As drivers enter their golden years, reflexes slow. Vision or hearing may become impaired. Heads don't swivel as well to check blind spots. That has many families facing the difficult task of asking a parent or grandparent to give up their car keys for their safety and the safety of others on the road.
AAA reports that by next year, 1 in 5 drivers will be over the age of 65.
I've been driving since I was 16.
Natalie Carnes is already past 65.
Way over.
But she still feels competent to drive.
All these years, I've never had an accident.
Some of her friends, however, no longer feel safe behind the wheel.
I have friends that are giving up their license.
Carnes says she's comfortable because she's always been a defensive driver.
I'm watching out that they're paying attention because everybody's on cell phones or things nowadays.
How would she feel if family or friends said they thought she was no longer fit to drive?
I have a feeling I wouldn't like it.
That conversation's so hard to have, and even more difficult when they don't listen and it comes to the point where you just have to take their keys or take their car.
Try taking a senior driver's keys and you'll probably have a fight on your hands. That is the last bit of freedom that they have. Many times that's the only mode of transportation that they have is to drive themselves. So it's not real easy to get a senior driver's keys when it's time for them not to drive.
I live alone, and it's everything, all my errands, all my volunteer work, I have a part-time job, I mean, church. What would I do?
Oklahoma has more than 443,000 licensed drivers over the age of 65, including more than 41,000 aged 85 or older. Lieutenant George Brown with the Highway Patrol says drivers in the over 65 age group tend to be careful and not involved in lots of wrecks.
But the ones that do happen are deadly. 4 years ago, the Will Rogers collision, greatest, biggest fatality collision in Oklahoma's history. 10 people killed by a driver who was over 70 years old in a semi. Just recently, last week, 64-year-old driver hits and kills an ODOT worker. When you're older, your body does tend to shut down. You slow down, your reflexes aren't as fast. You tend to fall asleep easier. So all these factors lead to dangerous things when you're on the road.
To make sure she's up to driving, Carnes went through the free CarFit program offered by AAA and many police departments.
You are wearing your seatbelt properly. It's good to have that lap belt right at your hip bones because that's where your body is the strongest.
CarFit offers senior drivers exercises to limber up the muscles needed to work their car's controls and be flexible enough to swivel their heads to check their vehicle's blind spots. It also makes sure seats and mirrors are properly adjusted and that seniors know how to work their car's safety features.
With the new technology of the cars, if you can imagine, I mean, how long, when a lot of the people that are 65 and older, we didn't have airbags, we didn't have analog brakes, we didn't have a lot of the safety features that are now coming just, with the cars.
Lisa Ford is with the Broken Arrow Police Department. In 2004, she helped bring CarFit to Oklahoma and now trains other agencies to provide the service. Since its inception, CarFit found more than a third of elderly drivers it screens have at least one critical safety issue. The most common problem? Sitting too close to the steering wheel airbag. Drivers need to be 10 to 12 inches away for it to work properly in a collision. That's about the length of a sheet of notebook paper. Another issue? Not being able to see over the steering wheel. Adjust the wheel or seat so the driver's eyes are at least 3 inches above the steering wheel to fix the problem. The program also has seniors walk around their vehicles to check for scrapes, dents, and other signs of collisions. Multiple minor crashes can be a big clue for older motorists that it's time to hand over their keys before a more serious incident occurs. Daniel Carnes is with AAA.
Nobody wants to be the one to tell their parent or grandparent, hey, give me your keys. We want people to be able to drive for as long and as safe as possible. And we want the driver themselves to be able to make that assessment on their own.
So AAA offers drivers over 65 a free self-exam to help determine whether they have other factors that indicate it's time to hang up the keys. Officer Chris Chambers patrols the streets of Broken Arrow.
What I see with the elderly drivers, I notice Their violations are usually failure to yield, pulling out of a private drive or a business, running red lights, unsafe lane changes. I don't see a whole lot of, or don't stop a whole lot of elderly drivers for speeding. It's mainly their reflexes are slower, so the reaction time is slower. Their eyesight may not be quite as good, so they don't see oncoming traffic as well, or they don't have the mobility sometimes to turn the head and you know, looking over in their blind spot for other traffic when they make the lane changes.
His biggest concern involves a different impairment.
The biggest issue I see is with Alzheimer's patients. We need to take the keys from them. I've seen too many times where they've gotten a hold of their car keys and gone out for a drive thinking they're going somewhere, and they end up on the other side of town or in the other side of their county. I've seen them end up on the other side of the state.
As we worked on this story, we found just about everyone we talked to has had an experience with an elderly friend or relative who is not quite safe to drive. However, they didn't want to confront that person, and they didn't want to talk about it on camera because it's an uncomfortable topic. Now, if you find yourself in that predicament, there is an answer. You can call the Department of Public Safety and request that that person who you feel is unsafe have a driver's license review. If they are found to be unsafe, their license will be revoked. And if that elderly friend or relative is involved in a collision, a law enforcement officer can ask for a review as well.
I was working the Creek Turnpike. 94-year-old lady got misoriented, caused a crash. Fortunately, no one was hurt in it. But when I called her adult daughter to come to the scene, you know, and explain things to her about how we can do a review, she didn't want that because it was going to make it inconvenient for her.
But where the rubber hits the road, the inconvenience of driving an elderly relative or friend to the store or doctor is far less than dealing with a crash that kills them or someone else.